What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I am Jabril, and I am with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming. And today, Steve, we're going to start with what we've been playing like always. What you've been playing?
So, to no surprise, obviously, I have been playing hours and hours of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes.
In my closest Keanu Reeves voice.
His voice acting is crazy.
Yeah, that's another topic we gotta get to. So Cyberpunk 2077 finally released after multiple delays, after being announced, I think, in 2012. So this is 8 years in development. Not full development, but it's been a wait. And so I need to set expectations. I'm not one of those people who've been looking at this game like the second coming. I'm not one of those people who've been praising this game as going to be a revolutionary thing. I've always just been going into it thinking it's a cybernetic GTA, first-person GTA kind of thing. That's kind of my it's what I expected. I never saw trailers. I didn't know what the story was. I still kind of don't know what the story is. But that's what I went in. So I went in very blind. I never saw many trailers besides like the Keanu Reeves, Johnny Silverhand original trailer, I think 2 years ago at E3 or so, whatever it was. That's my really that was my really only exposure to Cyberpunk. So starting the game off, I was very new. I heard all about all the bugs on launch day, but by the time I got home and got to install it, the first day one patch was out, so I didn't really experience that much. So, and I've dabbled in it on both places. I played a good chunk of it on PC, refunded it before my Steam timer thing went up because it didn't run the greatest on PC either. So mainly I've been playing it on my Xbox One. Xbox Series. Okay. Xbox Series. I have it on Xbox, so playing it on Xbox Series, but it is just the Xbox, One X version because there is no next gen patch just yet. And I've gone from really hating it, I was really not with it at the beginning of it, to enjoying it a lot more now. And that's really just because that beginning of that game is all over the place. You're given this simple mission, and I'm not sure which route you went. So I went the street route the first time, and you're given this simple mission of going to to go steal that car, and that's when you meet Mr. Jackie, right? Jackie
Wells.
Yeah. So, and that's when you meet him, and then I'm like, this is all kind of very slow and boring. And then they some reason give you a montage of amazing stuff that you don't get to play. I don't understand that. They show you a montage of you and Jackie getting drunk and doing all these shootouts and doing all these missions and hanging out in the dance club, getting in fights with bouncers, really building that relationship. But some reason you just showed it to me in a 45-second montage. I'm like, I wanted to play all that because that looked great. To then really trying to just make you feel emotion for Jackie and all these other missions you do. You go to him, he's eating a bowl of soup and you're talking, and the game is really starting to drag at those first couple hours. And I'm like, I don't feel this. I don't feel some of the voice acting's not top notch. The world is there, but besides, unless you want to just randomly shoot people, I wasn't finding much to do because you have no money at the beginning and stuff like that. So you're really kind of forced to just do those story missions at the beginning, in my experience, and it was just kind of there. Like, things were just there. Luckily, the shooting is actually pretty solid. It's not maybe like Destiny level or Activision Call of Duty level shooting, but it's way like superior to other first-person shooters. So that's what was getting me through it. Eventually, after, and I'm gonna avoid a spoiler, it happens very early on. Something happens that really switches the game up on you, and that's when Johnny Silverhand is introduced, and you do a small segment with him. And from then on, the game, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely enjoying it. I like the decisions making. I like the world that you actually get to explore. Just like the characters, all the characters that are introduced. Some stuff is a little thrown at you at once. Random people are calling me, giving me missions that I never met. I don't understand that aspect. It's very Witcher-like. And it's just like hand over hand. Just like, now my mission log is full of missions again, which is, again, very a Witcher thing, which they said they were going to try to avoid so much of. But from that on, from when Johnny Silverhand's introduced, and it's not just because it's it's Keanu Reeves. I like Keanu Reeves, but it's not just because his character. It's just the event that causes Johnny Silverhand to be in the plot. From then on, the game really opens up to like your choices and what you want to do, who you want to meet, how you want to do it. What guns you want to use, what vehicles you want to use. Your decision making actually feel a little bit more relevant. So I'm in, I want to say about 12 hours in, over the course of like 12 hours on my Xbox, and I played about 2 on PC just to see the difference. And I'm enjoying it. I am really enjoying it. I know a lot of people are having these big like protests about it, and because of the bugs and stuff. And I have run into some visual bugs. Only one, not game breaking, but something I had to completely shut off my Xbox, turn it on, load it up, and relaunch it. Was only once. Besides that, I've not had any hard crashes. I have not had any like falling through the map and stuff like that. I have had stuff where like Jackie disappears and it's just 2 guns holstered, walking around. So I've had small glitches, and there was one, a lot of T poses. I'll give them that there was a lot of those. So all in all, I am enjoying the game. It's not perfect. They did put that hot fix out. I think PlayStation and PC got it Friday or Saturday. Xbox got it later on. And it's fixed a lot of issues. But again, it's just, it's rough to see it in this state. Definitely should have taken a couple more months if they wanted to release it, in a more solid state. But that's all I've been playing, just because I really needed, because I know this is a dense game. If I didn't get into it the first weekend, I would never get into it. So that's my little rant on Cyberpunk. It's interesting. I do enjoy it, and I'm going to keep playing it, which is a good thing. Like, my plan was to wake up a little earlier today to play it, but obviously I kept sleeping because I stayed up late playing it last night. So it's an interesting game. I'm really liking it. I'm liking it more as a game than I did Witcher. Witcher I felt more like an experience, but as a like responsive, twitchy game, Cyberpunk is really winning me over. So that's all I've been playing. Jabro, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so before I get into one thing, I'll talk about Cyberpunk first. So you started off your whole thing like where you weren't one of those people who like thought this was gonna be like the second coming, and you felt you didn't fall hype to all this stuff like that. Admittedly, I was definitely that guy. I've been waiting for this game for a really long time. I knew this game would probably have issues. I was a little bit surprised by some of the performance issues. Especially considering the fact that this is all after all those delays and stuff like that. So that makes me wonder, like, oh man, if they launched the first time, what state would have this been on? But I've been playing on PlayStation 5, and so that's shielded me from some of, I guess, like the worst performance issues, and we'll get into more of that next with the story. That shielded me from a lot of that, but I've pretty much everything that people have said happens in this game, I've experienced at some point. Everything. From the crashes to the texture popping to the hair not coming up in the mirror to people not rendering all the way to overlapping dialogue. I've kind of had it all. But generally speaking, my experience hasn't really been hampered too much by that. I've been able to progress pretty much just fine through everything. Again, hard crashed twice. Same day, same play session. But since then, it's been fairly stable. I like the game a lot. The story, it was a little slow to begin with. But once it really started going, especially at the part you mentioned, I've liked it a lot so far. I've liked all the side missions, and I just love... The funny thing is, I really did expect kind of like a futuristic, gritty GTA. And what I got in many ways was kind of a futuristic, gritty, cyberpunk-ish Fallout game, it's probably closer to. Which actually really did surprise me, especially some of the mission structure were in the way that, like, hey, if you kill somebody, there's the end of that. And so I definitely made some choices early on with some of the side missions where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I kind of just live with it. It's not like I'm like reloading saves or anything like that. I kind of just live with it. So it's really, really interesting the way they kind of play around with certain narrative structures, and especially like I'm curious to see like when you make certain choices about like romances and sexuality, does that have implications down the line with who you get involved with and stuff like that. So I'm kind of exploring that and seeing where this kind of opens up and how many different sequences and directions that the game goes in. But generally speaking, I would say that I really, really like the game. It's not a perfect game. It has a lot of issues. But, I mean, Witcher had a ton of issues, too, when it launched. I remember. Yes. I don't know if you remember, but there's an entire area of the map where it, like, barely ran. I know you remember that. I think it was, like, that swampy area.
Yeah, I played Witcher 3 on... At the time, there was only base PS4, so at round launch, because everyone was talking about it. And, yeah, there was times the game looked great, but... That's the game that really started pushing my system to sound like a jet engine. That's the one and then that swamp area. If some reason if the assets weren't loading correctly, it would just fog up to I guess hide it. So it was weird stuff.
Yeah, so this doesn't surprise me necessarily now that it's in the shape it is, and it gives me faith that, especially with the next gen versions and things that are better optimized for specifically the Series X and the PlayStation 5, that things will, run and stabilize a lot better. And it makes me excited because I do see some reflective and high resolution stuff going on in the last gen version of it. So it makes me excited to see what happens when we get like some real ray tracing. But that also kind of scares me because I'm like, okay, so if like the PS4 version runs like this, what's going to happen with the PS5? I don't know if it's going to run better or if it's going to run worse. I have no clue. But again, if you go to Witcher right now, it's, flawless. It's phenomenal. And they've really hunkered down and put in the time and fixed that game in a way that very few developers do. So I have a lot of faith that in a relatively timely manner, Cyberpunk will be performing probably just fine. It's going to take a little bit of time. I feel really bad for people on the base units because, again, next-gen units are so difficult to get your hands on. So people who are like, oh, if you want to play it, well, just get next-gen consoles. Well, that's not an option for a lot of people. A lot of people are trying. Yeah. It's really difficult. And even with the PC, from what I understand, anything short of like a 3080 is not really running this that great, from what I understand. You need a pretty high-end graphics card to get this moving. So for the most part, for a really consistent experience, you need really high-end graphics card, the Series X or the PS5. And even with the Series X and PS5, I'm running into pretty significant frame dropping depending on the area that you go to. Certain areas of the map are laid out to a way where, like, if you literally cross over a hill, it opens up a huge amount of the city. And depending on what settings you have turned on and off, the frame can drop pretty significantly at that point. And I'm not like a frame rate guy, so I'm not like, oh, it went from 60 to 45. But no, I'm noticing like stuff closer probably to around like a 15 at times, especially in some gunfights. So that's a little bit concerning, but that's something I feel like they can fix with time because I feel like the core game itself is not broken. Everything's there. For the most part, everything works. There's nothing game-breaking I bumped into. So it's more just performance optimization stuff that they need to work on. And again, we can get deeper into that. And the next game that I've been burning a lot of time in, and almost reluctantly so, like every time I do it, I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And no, it's not GTA this week, even though I do almost play that daily. Because for some reason, I just insist on playing games I probably shouldn't be. But it's Assassin's Creed. Now, I'm not playing Valhalla. I'm playing Assassin's Creed, as I said, on 360, the original Assassin's Creed I'm playing right now.
Okay.
That is a wild ride. So, obviously, this is the one that a lot of people absolutely hate. Or not that they hate, but they think it's probably one of the worst entries. And I 100% understand why. The controls are awful controls. But it is really, really awesome to be able to experience this for the first time. I'm basically getting to experience what a lot of people wish they could, which is to experience the classic Assassin's Creed again for the first time. I'm actually going into that, and it's kind of interesting seeing from the ground floor, learning about like Desmond and seeing Abstergo as like not necessarily an already accepted, already know it's a problem thing, where it's kind of this ambiguous, like, is this company good? Are they not? Like, it's really cool to see that. And the biggest thing that actually bugged me out, and again, this is my first time playing this one in depth. I've only kind of dabbled around in 2 and Brotherhood from the classic ones. So the thing that bugged me out the most is the fact that there's like a full Brotherhood. So this almost is kind of like the prequels where you see the full Jedi Order for the first time. You're like, holy crap, there's more than one.
That's the best way to
They have like
that.
buildings. They have like buildings and the signs all over the place, and it's like, man, what is that? That's such a change because again, I jumped in Odyssey, and many of these things are kind of either before or like I've played some of the stuff like I've like dabbled around in Syndicate where like the Order's not this massive thing. So seeing this classic fight between like the Templars holding power, and in many ways the Assassins are a pretty well-known property and they have their own sections, and they're kind of still going to war with each other. Literally, I mean, you'll see like 30 people on one side, 30 people on the other, and it's like, that's pretty cool. That gives me like KOTOR vibes of kind of like a time before like things really hit the fan, you know what I mean? And so I'm actually really enjoying it from a narrative standpoint. It's just obviously the gameplay is like crazy rough. But that makes me excited because I'm like, well, if I'm getting some entertainment value out of this, I'm gonna love too. Then for sure.
Yeah. That's gonna be.
And
it's
the cool
gonna be,
thing,
I'm interested to hear about that from you.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is I actually was able to get Assassin's Creed 1, 2, Brotherhood, 3, and 4 Black Flag all in a bundle together for like $15 on eBay. So as of right now, I'm just gonna keep working my way through them, and as long as I have a little extra time and I'm kept entertained, I'm probably gonna keep just working through them. I mean, I worked through Mass Effect. Assassin's Creed is a way bigger undertaking, obviously, than pretty much anything I've tackled before. The Final Fantasies, I understand the Final Fantasies a lot more, and you could, not that you can mainline them, but you can get through them pretty fast if you know what you're doing and you know how to upgrade your character properly. Assassin's Creed is going to be a little different. I mean, stories are kind of, they're linear, so they are what they are. So it's probably going to take you 12, 15, sometimes 20, depending on the game, to get through it pretty much no matter what, unless you're doing some crazy speedrun thing. So I'm going to keep working my way through it and see if I can. I would love to beat this one. We'll see. The combat was like destroying me for a little bit because I could not like grasp my head around it. I had to completely break my muscle memory because it doesn't control anything like the new ones, and not definitely for the worst. Like it has this weird, you like lock on and then you have to hold not R2. What do they call it? The right trigger. You have to hold like the right trigger and use like this kind of like counter system, but not in like a Batman way, in a weird like you have to almost mash it kind of in a way and then reflect it, and then sometimes they'll throw 6 enemies to you and they'll like throw you, they'll like pick you up and throw you, and I'm like, what is this? But I definitely understand obviously there's crazy potential in this, and it makes me really excited to see what this story really takes into and see what everybody's been talking about all this time, where it's like, oh, the new games are cool and all, but we wanted to go back to this. So I want to experience it to understand really what people are talking about. And so far from like a narrative structure, I already feel that it has more weight than a lot of the newer ones. And so I'll give them that like specifically the future struggle. For the first time, I'm experiencing stuff that takes place in the future, and I'm actually enjoying it. And that's a new feeling for me. Because again, when you start out with Origins, everything is so secondary for you in terms of like the whole Abstergo, Assassin's line fight going on. Like it's such a secondary storyline. And it almost takes a backseat even to the Isu storyline stuff with that ancient society and all their technology. So being able to see that take precedence again and actually be the core thing of the story, and the history stuff actually being what kind of contextualizes the future, is kind of a breath of fresh air. So I'm going to keep working away with it, and probably every week I'll have a little update for you guys, and hopefully I don't come in one week and be like, I can't beat this, screw this game. But chances are, if I really can't get through 1 and it's that difficult, I'll just watch the story online and skip to 2, probably.
Yeah, and if you made it this far,
the story's great.
You'll definitely get through the other ones. If you get through 1, then you're golden. If you got to like the end of 1 and struggle a little bit, you'll be fine. It's been a while since I played the first one, but I think if you're enjoying
I'm like halfway through right now.
Yeah, you're sounding like you're enjoying it a lot. So I can't wait till you get to 2 and Brotherhood specifically.
Yeah, there's small things that annoy me that I'm like, why? Like for example, first off, the enemy guards are some of the most volatile AI I've ever experienced in my life. Like, they are on you the entire game. Whether you're in the city, you need to hold A and be in little hiding mode all the time. Not all the time, but very frequently, because they're always watching you. And if you're riding your horse, God forbid, and they spot you, they try to kill you there too. And then I'm like, all right, I'll just go to the roofs. There's guys up there too waiting for me. It's like, hey, you can't be up here. And it's like, where can I be? Where can I be? And then if they start chasing you, God forbid that happens, you better find a bale of hay or a bench or something to hide into, because even breaking the line of sight doesn't work. And I'm like, okay. So that was a big adjustment to me. There would be times I would like crouch down around the corner, and that didn't work. And I'm like, wait, they're still searching for me? And like 6 guys come around the corner. I'm like, what kind of AI is this? Like, these guys are no joke. So, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's
Good.
wild, but it looks really good for '07. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Xbox's emulation is really, really impressive, and it looks really, really decent. Some of the facial animations are absolutely insane, and the way they move their mouths remind me a lot of Sonic Adventure. But the resolution and textures of like the world in general are really, really impressive.
It's good. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad
So
you're enjoying them.
So I guess we can move on to our first story here, and we're kind of gonna cap off what all the Cyberpunk 2077 information. So it's had kind of a rough launch in many ways. So it's out and it's had its fair share of launch issues. So the first thing we can talk about is performance issues across the board, but especially on the base PS4 and the Xbox One. People have reported experiencing a lot of bugs and frame rate issues in the game, along with full game crashes. Apparently, the base PS4 and Xbox One versions are especially rough, though, with crazy low-res textures and stuff like this. And I've been making the joke to people who I've been talking to about it. And it's like, oh, wait till that Switch port comes out. You want to talk about low-res. So we've spoken a little bit about it, but we've both kind of encountered some kind of performance issues, right?
Yeah, so, and I kind of have my foot in both waters, because on Xbox, it was kind of rough at the beginning. Some of the text, there was some pop-ins. The characters would rant, NPCs, nothing, again, too out of the ordinary, stuff like that. But, some textures would pop in. A lot of stuff on Jackie's jacket would kind of, like, every once in a while kind of pop in and out and stuff like that. And little things like that. When I would switch a gun too quickly, it would kind of look like Fallout, and then it would snap in. And, I went in and turned off a lot of those features, motion blur, and that whole section in the graphics section. It's like motion blur and the weird. I turned all those off, and the game actually runs
Film
better
grain
and looks film grain. Yeah, I turned all that off because I saw someone recommend that, and the game actually does look better without that stuff. Just because,
for sure, it helped me.
It runs smoother. You're not trying to get this weird dynamic lighting and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so it runs pretty. Now with and it sucks that you have to turn those off, but it does run pretty well for me on Xbox. On PC, and I don't have obviously a 3080 graphics card and stuff like that, but I have a 2070, and that's not any.
Okay, that's not bad either.
I got a terabyte SSD. I don't have like a weak PC. I don't have the monster PC, so I have definitely a pretty way above the minimum. I compared it to the minimum they had, and the game looks fantastic on PC. Don't get me wrong, it looked crazy good. But everything else is still kind of suffering there. Load times, not really load times, but still pop-ins. The frame rates weren't as smooth. I had to start messing around with lowering the resolution a lot. And, the reason I had it refunded on PC is because I would lower the resolution so much that it would run smooth. And then basically I was just playing the Xbox One version, in a sense. So, which is why for now, once it gets really fixed up on PC, and maybe it's on a sale, I'll pick it up again, but we'll see. I may give it and buy it on PC again just cause, but so I've had some performance issues on both when I tried them.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised because I heard about it having a lot of performance issues, but I figured I'm playing on PlayStation 5, and I mean this thing, if it doesn't run on this, it don't run on nothing. But relatively quickly I saw that there was some issues, so I don't think this is obviously not a power issue. This is definitely more of an optimization issue. I think it just needed a little bit more time in development to kind of stew and work out some of the little bugs and stuff like that, which did surprise me because again it got so much extra time. But I feel like they were probably obviously caught in a situation where like COVID kind of threw a wrench in their probably their schedule that they had, and also that you have to admit public pressure was certainly mounting to get this game out, and I doubt they wanted to jump into another year because again this was supposed to originally come out in April or something like that.
I want to say
and
April.
So for it to get pushed all the way to the next year, I mean that would be insane. That'd be like something like what Halo does, but no, we'll get into that. That did surprise me a little bit, but again, as we said earlier, I have full confidence that this will get worked out, and once they get all the performance issues out of the way, then we could have some real solid conversations about how good this game really is, because I think once the narrative gets going, if it wasn't the performance hampering it, then I think you have an incredibly solid experience here, and they built something really, really solid. Absolutely. So the second major controversy about this game is obviously the epilepsy flashing animation, specifically with the brain dance thing. So we'll get into that. So Game Informer originally reported on Monday that Cyberpunk 2077's brain dance sequences, a sort of storytelling tool wherein people interface with recordings of a person's memory, and you can kind of go back and forward and edit it and look for different details, contained a series of red and white flashing LED lights that deeply resembled the actual process by which doctors trigger seizures in patients. Game Informer's Rupert reported that a result of this sequence, they experienced a grand mal seizure. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. According to the Mayo Clinic, a grand mal seizure can cause a loss of consciousness and violent muscle contractions and is usually caused by epilepsy. They've since issued warnings inside the game, and as of playing yesterday and doing that update, that animation seems to have been taken out. It does flash one light at you, but it doesn't like flicker or anything like that. So it kind of it flashes the wrong word. It kind of shines a light at you, and then the brain dance process begins instead of that crazy flash. But when I started playing, it did do that crazy flash, and immediately I like turned to my girlfriend. I'm like, "Oh, that's what they're talking about," and I'm like, "That's insane." Typically, I understand that like sometimes you just overlook some things, and I understand these things happen, but like I need to talk to the person who thought that was a good idea, because that was insane. The first time I booted up the brain dance, and like literally like medical grade crazy flashing in your face. I'm like, oh, who thought that was a good idea? What was the point of that? So that was really surprising to me. Did you notice that at all?
So I did. You know, at first I was confused by this arc. When I saw this kind of trending around, I'm like, guys, every video game has a seizure warning. And, because the games are flashing. So I was a little in the dark. When I launched it and that first brain dance sequence came up, I'm not prone to seizures or epileptic or anything like that. But my goodness, like, it like shocked me, like took me by surprise, because it's like specifically was those continuous flashing white and red lights, and I'm like, for a second I closed my eyes and like moved my head back for a second because it was super bright, and I'm playing in a dark room like I would assume most people are playing, nice quiet dark room laid back in your couch, and it just like shook me. I'm like, whoa, and I was like, that's what I'm like, wasn't sure. I purposely didn't text you over the weekend because I wanted to save our discussion for this about Cyberpunk, and I was like, what? I was like, okay. I'm like, that's definitely it. Then I want to say the patch came out. By the time I played the next time, the patch was out, and when I did the next brain dance, which I actually don't enjoy doing the brain dances in general.
I hate them. I think they're so freaking boring.
Good, yeah, they're so dumb.
I hate it.
So I wish I could skip them, man. And but so yeah, and then I noticed that I think the red is gone, and it kind of just brightens a lot once, and it might flicker just one time, but it's a whole lot better. Again, I don't personally know anyone who can attest to if it's better or not, but I'm assuming it's better. I do think that they overlooked this, thinking, hey, it's a video game, we just slapped that, it's on the case, it's on on the launch screen. Almost every video game, if not every video game, has to have the epileptic seizure stuff. And I guess they thought that would be fine, but it's so random and unprecedented in the game, because you do a lot before you really do that first brain dance, and then it just smacks you. So I am glad that they kind of fixed it, and more people were able to at least enjoy it.
Oh, definitely. And I don't think this is an exaggeration at all. Obviously, we bump into a lot of stories where sometimes things are a little bit blown out of proportion, but I 1,000% think this is a more than justified critique of the game, and I'm glad that they attended to it in a very speedy manner, and they also released a statement and stuff like that. Now, before we move on to the last story, I do want to mention one thing that we're probably not going to cover too much into it, because again, I don't think it's really our place to mention, but there was a third controversy about Cyberpunk 2077, and it actually predates all of these, and it's the whole issue of like the trans representation stuff. And so I would be loath to not mention that is a massive kind of controversy about this game, where certain people are boycotting and stuff like that. And from what I understand, I'm going to tread lightly here because I don't want to like speak on anybody else's struggle, because neither of us are part of the trans community or anything like that. But from what I understand, so they made a big deal to not make gender this binary thing. So you can have a female presenting character with male genitalia, vice versa. You could play around with all these things. But from what I understand is gender is actually, and including sexuality, is kind of tied to a voice choice you make. And so if you have more of kind of like a masculine voice, it kind of locks you into essentially the male role that would be in traditional games. So if anything, the binary wasn't removed; it was just shifted to a different setting. So a lot of people are obviously pretty upset with that. That was actually really surprising to me personally, because again, they've made such a big thing about being so friendly to the trans community, and they tried to be a thing where it's like, it's not this binary thing. You could be whoever you want, whatever you want, make your character look however you want, play around with it. But to have such a strange oversight on this, I'd just be loath to skip over that, because again, that a huge chunk of people are really, really upset with this game, and there are significant boycotts happening specifically on influencers on social media calling for people to avoid this game. So I did want to mention that before we move on.
No, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that actually did slip my mind, because I do remember that them coming out talking about you can be whatever you want, you can choose to be non-binary and stuff like that, and the first option you're given is masculine or feminine, and later on, your character, I always thought was just going to go as generic V, and I thought that was obviously a nice way to keep like voice acting and stuff like that covered, because you only have one voice for male, one voice for female. And depending who you play as, I mean, depending on your choice, they do call you, every once in a while someone will call you by your name. I think it's Valerie for the female. I don't know what it is for the male, actually, I forgot. But so that it's weird that choice is taken away, because no matter what you do on the bottom, of your character, not necessarily the bottom in your genitalia area, it's still, you're basically still choosing male, female. You're choosing male protagonist, female protagonist, and I understand you can edit the stuff, so it's a little interesting, the way they did it, because it's not exactly what they promised. So I do understand that that blowback they get.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you go on Twitter, there's a ton of way more educated voices that I suggest you guys, if you're more interested in this particular subject, to go check out. There's a lot of people and a lot of interesting discourse happening on at least Twitter right now, but a little bit on Reddit as well. So I highly suggest you go look up Cyberpunk 2077 and some of the LGBTQ creators that are also, speaking about this in more depth, so you can get a little bit more information. But from what I understand, a lot of these problems could have been solved if some of these different settings just worked on a slider system, which we've seen before. You have a slider system for your nose side, a slider system for your voice in some games. And so if you just took away that binary and allowed some people to play as something in the middle and stuff like that, that didn't necessarily lock you down to certain sexuality choices and stuff like that, I feel like a lot of these problems could have been avoided, and that would be way more true to the spirit of what they initially communicated for this game. That's just my take on it.
Yep, absolutely.
But I just wanted to mention that before we move on, because I figured that is important to a lot of people.
No, of course, yes, especially since it's what they promised.
For sure.
All right. So moving on to the next story, we'll get back to Cyberpunk, I'm sure, later down in the time as we spend more time with it. But a game we're not going to be spending time with anytime soon, Jabro. Halo has, Halo was delayed this fall. Obviously, it was supposed to launch with the Series X and S. It's on the back of the box. There's all the little Master Chief symbols hidden on the inside of the system. But 343 Industries delayed it, and now we finally have some more information on that delay. Everyone was just kind of guessing spring, but 343 Industries has announced that Halo Infinite will ship in fall 2021, which is kind of the worst case scenario we really thought. And revealed further details on certain aspects of Halo Infinite, including graphics, art, and customization. The full statement, we'll have it linked below, obviously, when we discuss it. But the major points is they're trying to improve the art, the graphics, the Xbox Live integration, the customization, and that generally they need more time to do things right. This obviously makes it that why people were expecting a small delay. This is a massive delay. A year delay is pretty hefty thing to do. They obviously said that this the team is taking time off for the holidays, and they're going to come back in January to really finish the game at a healthy pace. They want to avoid the whole crunch controversy, which is its own thing. And this was disappointing. This was pretty disappointing. Halo Infinite was supposed to be this huge fall game for the Xbox, not only just for the Xbox One family, but obviously for the new Xbox Series family. This was going to be like the one exclusive, sort of, even though it's kind of everywhere. And it sucks because the game is now being delayed. At the same time, as much as I would have loved to get that Halo this year, the game was nowhere near ready. We saw that from the presentation. So I'm glad they're taking more than enough time to really get this game where it needs to be, because this game needs to succeed. This may be the end of Halo if it were to come out in a really botched state. And so though it sucks that the Halo is delayed, and as of right now we still have no information on maybe a alpha, beta for the multiplayer. We saw some new screenshots and stuff like that, and a lot of the art direction looks really great, and I'm excited for that. But it's what else is there? We need to know that this game is... We've only seen one section of this game, and that section was not received highly, so we're hoping that the rest of this game really comes together. We're hoping that everyone over there 343, they're more than capable, but I'm sure the pandemic threw some stuff in their wrench, which is why they're giving themselves so much time. So I'd rather them... you could always pull back, being like, the game's ready earlier, release it at sometime not in the fall. I doubt that. I doubt they would try to... they're going to probably stay close to that holiday time, especially since Xboxes will probably be in stock again, and it'll be a nice bundle and stuff like that. So what did you think, Jabril, of this? People are saying it's a second delay. It's not really a second delay. It's just a more clarification on that delay.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like two minds on it. So the first thing is, obviously, this is a game that not only do they want to, but they obviously need to get right. This is not a game that you want to put out half-assed or anything like that. People liked Halo 5, but it was not the critical reception they obviously wanted. And so this is kind of them proposing like this massive upgrade, return to form, capturing the spirit of the original. This is obviously what they poised to be, the system seller. So this is something that they want to get right. And it's one of their few major, exclusive IP. There's not many these days. And Microsoft seems to be, moving away from even wanting to be in that direction. So this is one of the few remnants of, you don't have an Xbox without Halo. Like, that's the thing. They're tied together. And so they want to get this right. But at the same time, a year delay is significant. Like, this is not falling from Q3 to Q4, Q4 to Q1 of the next year. This is, if they're talking about like holiday and stuff like that, if this comes out anywhere near November, we're talking about almost a full year being pushed off, which only makes me wonder. I'm like, then where is this game in development? If you were going to launch this year, and you could easily just say, okay, no, we're going to push it off to fall 2021, 365 days later. Where are you in development? This is not like bug fixing. This is, to me, a pretty fundamental rehaul of something you're working on. And that tells me that they at least perceive that they're nowhere near ready to launch this game, which is concerning, to be honest. I like 343. I think they do good work, but I feel like they need to really get all hands on deck on this, because I understand they're not playing the exclusive game, but at the end of the day, the industry still works that way, and they're still being perceived that way. And so they need to play the game to some extent. And obviously, they're not going to out-exclusive Sony right now. Sony is so ahead with it, with many, many IP, so they're not going to have the God of War and the Horizon Zero Dawn. They're not going to have 1 million launches a year. But to at least when they do launch something, a major first-party exclusive, it needs to hit right. And Forza is pretty consistently great. Gears, some people don't love it anymore, but it's genuinely a pretty quality game. Halo they need to hit. And so I have a lot of concerns about this game, and I know they have incredible talent over there, but there's something fundamentally wrong with, I feel like, some of their approach launching into this generation. It almost feels like if they're gonna launch this game as the major Series X title, and in many ways it seems like gonna be one of the first, if only at that point, major first party offering to really take advantage of the Series X's power, that's not a great sign to launch your console with that, especially coming off of the one that was so shaky. To be able to launch a console and then a year later finally have something from the first party that significant to launch with it is concerning. And that makes me almost feel like, okay, so what was this? Kind of like a soft launch, and then they're going to have like the actual launch a year later? That's a little bit concerning, because imagine like if the Switch came out with friggin' like Puyo Cross Tetris and like Super Bomberman, and then like, we'll launch Zelda in 2018, it's fine. That would be a really concerning thing. You'd be like, what? Oh, maybe this console wasn't ready to launch then. Maybe you should have held it for a little bit. to work out some of the kinks and stuff like that. But I mean, hey, I want this game to succeed. I'm absolutely going to play it. Obviously, anybody in the Xbox ecosystem with Game Pass has no excuse not to play it. But
True.
I have an eye on this because I have a bad feeling about this game. That not that it's I'm not going to like it, but that there's something wrong with this and its development. And this is not the franchise you want those signs to come from, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's actually terrifying a little bit that their biggest IP, if anything, is in such trouble. It makes you worry about a lot of those, like all the people leaving and restructuring in the studio. What effect did that have? What was this game supposed to be? What does it ended up being? There's that rumored battle royale feature that was never shown off, even though they had that setup at E3 about 2 years ago. They had a weird setup that they never used, which it was pretty much, it looked like just a row of TVs, like if someone was going to show off like a battle royale mode, but nobody was there. It's a lot of weird stuff going on with this game.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, a delay is just that. It's a delay, and once you put something out, it's kind of out forever. So I understand wanting to push it off, and it's like, we'll rather take the bad PR of having a super delayed game than to put something out that everybody kind of trashes, and will, in effect, reflect that on our next console, too. Because on top of that, keep in mind, Microsoft's already kind of fighting an uphill battle coming off of last gen, where the perception was, and not even perception, the reality was, that PlayStation 4 dominated them. And so going into this next generation, PlayStation has an incredible amount of momentum. And so they're playing a little bit of catch-up. They're fighting a little bit of uphill battle. And if their system seller, the next big Halo, is also not a hit, and on top of that, there's not a lot of exclusives, they're going to put themselves in kind of a bad situation where they can kind of recreate last gen again. And that's the last thing they want to do. Phil Spencer been making so many moves to really fix a lot of the goodwill that was lost there. So I feel like they're in a position where it's like, listen, we'll take the bad PR of delaying will be nowhere near as bad as the PR we'll get if we launch a bad Halo, period. So I as much as it's frustrating and concerning, I fully understand it.
No, absolutely.
So I guess we can move on to the first of kind of like two parts where we're going to talk about the Game Awards. So the Game Awards happened. It's a big deal. A lot of people watch it. A lot of people don't love it. Steve, did you watch the Game Awards?
I did. So what I did is I turned my computer screen, because my desk is like next to my TV. I turned my computer screen on and had the Game Awards there while I played Cyberpunk. So
okay, yeah, that's a good way to watch it.
Cheated.
Admittedly, I love Jeff Keighley. I do not like the Game Awards very much anymore. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of an old format. I don't mean to trash it. It's just really not my thing. I feel like as E3's gone away, we've, as an industry, kind of gotten away from bloated shows and stuff like that and bloated presentations. And in many ways, the Game Awards is about as bloated as it gets. It really does take its time. So the way I watched it is I did pull up the Game Awards, but I kind of fast forwarded through anything that wasn't like an announcement or a direct, like who's winning a certain subject. Yeah, so I just kind of cranked through it. So I didn't sit there and let it play out on its own. I did crank through a lot of it, but I didn't miss anything, obviously. So before we get started on the actual winners, we're going to talk about a lot of the announcements that we got here, because we got a lot of information here. So additional to a lot of nomination and winners, we got a lot of new announcements at the Game Awards. So here are some of the major ones. So the first one is a new Among Us map. Obviously, Among Us is a massive multiplayer game right now. I quite enjoy it. It's not something I play every day, but maybe I hop on once a week or so to play with my girlfriend and her friends, and I usually have a pretty good time on it. So the new map looks pretty cool. They added some cool things and ladder. And again, to anyone who doesn't play Among Us, they would probably see that video announcement and they'll be like, "That's it looks like a friggin' Flash game." But no, trust me, once you understand the game mechanics and the different multiplayer and the structure, there's actually quite a bit that they added here. Did this interest you at all? Yeah.
So again, I'm very not new. I've been playing Among Us for a little bit. Again, I don't play that much because I don't have many people to play with. But I do enjoy what it is. It's a nice small little low feature game. The map looks great. I do like it's like a blimp, right? An airship, not a blimp.
Airship. Yeah.
So it looks great. It looks like I'm gonna struggle. I struggle with the names of stuff when people like try to call me out. They're like, "Where were you? What task were you doing?" I don't know the names of anything.
Oh, me too. So I always forget, and it makes me look sus.
So I've been voted off a couple times. just because of that. So I can only imagine that a new map. I just started getting like the names of the maps we have now. I'm like, oh no, I'm in electrical. I'm in like the upper the area doing the scan. Now I'm gonna get to this map and be like, I don't know. I'm doing this thing and trying to get stuff, but it's nice, and from my understanding, this is a nice free update to Among Us. I believe. I don't think it's a paid.
No,
map.
Not paid.
And I would pay for it, because they probably would charge like $1.99. But
yeah, I have no
it's exciting. I do want to play more Among Us. I gotta get more people, and so I have more options to play with people. Just because I only play when everyone's on, and it takes a lot for me to get on there because you got to get a good crew on there to have fun.
Oh, for sure. We're gonna have to hop in a game then. We're gonna have to put in a little bit of work. The next one, Master Chief and Fortnite. Everyone's being added to Fortnite, so this didn't come to any surprise. But I guess some people are going to be excited about this, and I mean, it's only a matter of time until Fortnite looks like that VR simulator with a whole bunch of different characters. Basically, for me, it's like, call me when you add some anime girls, pretty much, because I know that's coming. I already know it. Is this something you're going to play at all?
I mean, it was interesting. I was only really interested because, so the rumor before Kratos was announced a while back, that the rumor was whenever the season started or whatever, because I know the Mandalorian's in it, and there's that fake anime girl who turns to a robot. The rumor was, Kratos from Sony, Master Chief from Microsoft, and Samus from Nintendo.
Oh, that
and
would be cool.
The first two have been true so far. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I wouldn't. That's what I said. I said, we got Kratos first, which I was like, what? Sony gave them one of their biggest IPs to do all these weird dances. So it's okay. It's there. I mean, that's cool. It's definitely a weird thing. I can't wait to pop into the next concert, I guess, just to see the massive amount of just like Kratos and Halo and Master Chiefs and stuff. So it'll be interesting. It's cool.
Yeah, it's not a super hard sell. I mean, they'll never get anywhere near a Mario. That's never happening. But no. I could see like something from Metroid. It's one of those kind of like secondary properties where I could see them have a little bit more leeway and play around with. So that makes all the sense. I think that'd be awesome. So the next one, Open Roads. So oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, you're good.
Okay, so Open Roads. This is gonna be a Fulbright game for the people who made Gone Home. I really, really enjoyed Gone Home, so this was kind of exciting for me. It's one of those indie titles. It's not for everybody, but I really enjoyed Gone Home. Did you played Gone Home, right?
I played a little bit. I haven't. Some reason I just never, because I know it's a shorter experience. Just never finished it front to back. I've installed it multiple times because I think we got it on PS Plus one time. It was on Game Pass or it was on Games with Gold. I just haven't. I do enjoy it. This is that road trip one, right? The Open Roads.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so it looked interesting. So I'm excited for it. I do want to go back to Gone Home, and support them. So support Fulbright. So I'm interested in it. It does look nice. It definitely looks like something that's gonna be popping on that Twitch stream for a while.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this is one of those things that it's like the game itself, just in its announcement, doesn't necessarily super excite me, but I basically give them the benefit of the doubt because Gone Home, I think, is a really, really awesome game. And obviously it's gotten all the awards and the critical, best indie game and all that and stuff like that. But it's a really cool game because it's the perfect kind of chill Sunday afternoon. You pop it on. It won't take you more than like 45 minutes, an hour. It's not a long experience like that. It's an inexpensive game. It's been out for quite a while now. So it's more akin to like a cute indie movie more than it is an actual like interactive game or anything like that. You're not going to be sitting there grinding Gone Home, but pretty fun experience. So I have a lot of faith in that team. Next one, the big one, Sephiroth and Smash. Now I'm not a Smash player, but I know, tons and tons of people are, and I have no clue. How has the reception been for this? Are people happy about this?
So it's been a mixed bag because the Smash speculation thing is a big deal. People, rumors, insiders, and stuff like that. And the last couple times, especially this Fighters Pass, the second Fighters Pass, none of the speculation has been correct. All the speculation was pointing to Crash Bandicoot or Sora to be revealed in this one. And I don't remember anyone discussing Sephiroth. People are excited, obviously, because, it's Sephiroth. Now you get Cloud and Sephiroth in a game. It's great. A lot of people are disappointed that it is just another anime sword fighter, which, to be, honest, the game is filled with them thanks to the Fire Emblem characters and stuff like that. So a lot of other people are really upset because this is obviously another Square rep, because now you have Cloud, you have Dragon Quest Hero, and now you have Sephiroth. It's weird because a lot of people were expecting Geno from Super Mario RPG, the 7 Stars saga. He's a little wooden puppet. He's apparently he's a huge one. He's this huge one that people have been dying for since Brawl, and he was actually going to be in Brawl, and then he was removed pretty quickly because there's a weird ownership between Nintendo and Square that still own that character. Bunch of nonsense. So the reception's been mixed. Some people are super excited because it's Sephiroth, and other people are like, it's literally just another pretty boy with the sword. You know, we have 3 Links. We have now Cloud. We have him. We have half the cast is Fire Emblem. So it's there.
The Xenoblade guy, I forget his name. Shulk.
We have Shulk. And so people are really confused because there's so many other characters we really could have gotten, and why choose Sephiroth? It's just it is a little bizarre. It's a bizarre choice, but I mean, it's I don't know. It's interesting.
Hey, you want to talk weird? They just did the Minecraft guy, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
No, I don't play Smash, so I don't really have a hard stance one way or another. I respect the hell out of Smash, but it's almost like Fortnite for me, where it's like I respect it from a distance. Like, it's not something I'm going to sit there and play a lot of, but I like what it is to the industry as a whole. But what I do love about Smash is these announcement trailers. I always rush to them because they make the best announcement trailers. And just the moment I heard that music, I was just like chills. Because again, I'm not going to play it, but I just love Final Fantasy VII so much.
Yeah.
So it's so exciting, and just seeing Cloud's face when he appears, and it's just the complete defeated exhaustion in his face, like, oh, I'm not here to, please.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys don't even know what this guy's about.
Yeah, everyone looked confused. Banjo-Kazooie, they're like, what's going on? And then zooms in on Cloud's face and he says something in Japanese, but it's great.
Yeah, Mario's like, oh, who's this guy? And Cloud's like, oh man, this is gonna be a problem. And the ending scene where he goes full angel heaven end of 7 thing, that was pretty exciting, because that was a super play towards the super fans, because again, if you've only played the remake and you've only watched Advent Children, you don't know anything about that. So that's tail end of the series, so it's really, really exciting to see that they're playing through the whole everything Sephiroth has to offer. So that's exciting.
Yep, interesting stuff.
So the next one, Back 4 Blood. So this seems to be a Left 4 Dead spiritual successor, which is funny because I actually just downloaded Left 4 Dead 2 on my PC. Haven't played it yet, but I have it there because it went on sale for literally $2 or something like that. So, in a bundle with Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, and I actually haven't played those before, so I'm probably going to dive into those maybe sometime this weekend or next weekend. But it seems like Left 4 Dead's coming back. This has been something that people have been asking for a long time, either Left 4 Dead to come back or something like Left 4 Dead, and there's been lots of people who tried to fill that role to kind of mixed results. Some people it's close, but no cigar. So it seems like we're going to get pretty much everything people wanted, which is essentially Left 4 Dead coming back to the modern game sphere. But a lot of games have since copied it, so I'm curious to see how much that kind of specific type of survival game resonates with the modern public.
Yeah.
Is this something that interests you at all?
Yeah, I'm glad that it's there for the community. I've never, played. I've played Left 4 Dead, but this is back when 360 era. I would go to my brother's house to spend the night. He'd get a bunch of pizza, and we would, just all play Left 4 Dead. The games aren't, at least into my memory, aren't revolutionary. I'm surprised that people love it so much because it's really just a horde game that you kind of run through a little bit.
Horde survival pretty much.
Yeah, so this one looks great. It's pretty much Left 4 Dead 3, except even the way they've marketed it with Back 4, with the fort in the middle of the Back 4 Blood and stuff like that. So it's obviously, I don't understand why they abandoned the Left 4 Dead 3 name. I guess someone owns it and stuff like that. And the original Left 4 Dead team did Evolve, I believe. I think it was Turtle Rock.
I think so.
And I think they're the ones doing
this. That
this.
sounds familiar.
So I'm confused why they just... I don't know if they just want a fresh start, not to attach to them to stuff like that. So I'm excited for the people there. Will I play it? Probably not. I don't know what this looks like. Maybe if it's on a Game Pass or there's some sort of deal. This is obviously something you have to play with multiplayer to get the right amount, unless they really fix AI and stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned exactly what I was going to say. If this pops up on Game Pass, I have no problem giving this a shot. But it's not, this specific type of like multiplayer game is just really not my cup of tea. But the next one is very, very interesting. The Callisto Protocol. So this is apparently the Dead Space 1 team, Striking Distance Studios. And this is really excited. Now, if this is anything like Dead Space, this is probably something I'm going to watch on YouTube. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. If it's anywhere near Dead Space, I am not touching this thing because it's too scary for me. I know my limits, but I know this is an exciting thing for a lot of people because, again, we're having a interesting kind of like survival horror resurgence right now. But there is definitely that kind of like specific Dead Space lane that is empty. So if they jump in and they're able to take that, that's really exciting. And that we're seeing a lot of things from that time period, that kind of 2007 to 2010 period, come back. And it's a really, really exciting time. So is this something that you would play, you think?
Yeah, I kind of lost it a little bit because when I was watching this trailer, again, I would pause Cyberpunk to just pretty much look at these trailers. And I'm like, whoa, is this... For a second, I was like, is this Dead Space? I was like, because immediately that trailer was super... Dead Space vibes, and then you get the whole thing about it's Dead Space Team 1 and the original team, stuff like that. So it's exciting. It all depends. It depends when it launches. Depends how exactly the gameplay looks. Because for horror games, which is this obviously, they came out afterwards and they're like, we really want this to be like a horror video game. And I'm like, there's a horror video game, and like Resident Evil 7 and stuff like that. And then there's like Silent Hill 4, The Room, and I'm like, "There's where is this?"
We don't speak about that one.
I'm like, what? Where is this game going to be playable to me, or is this going to, is this one of those games where I want someone in the room with me the whole time to try to get through it? If not, it's definitely something I'll watch someone stream, and I'm sure the streaming community is going to love this, especially those horror games, especially those loud guys who love to overreact and stuff.
Oh, the screaming.
Yeah, the screaming guys. But if it's really solid and people can't stop talking about, I may have to jump in to see it and give it my best shot. I don't know how far I would make it, but who knows?
The next one, the one that made me probably second most excited,
yeah.
The return of Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark is back. I really, really like the original Perfect Dark. It's clunky, sure. I have dabbled with the 360 one, I think, Perfect Dark Zero or something like that.
Yeah.
And I haven't played enough of that one to really actually even have an opinion on it. But the original one I'm actually pretty familiar with. And so this is a franchise that I'm actually really excited to see come back to some capacity. I knew there was some demand for it, but I wasn't sure if it was demand enough to even justify them ever going back to them. Again, there's a lot of franchises that people kind of have this kind of cult love for. So I wasn't sure we would ever see Perfect Dark come back. But it seems like it is, and it seems like from the visuals that they're showing that it's definitely in line with the visual style of the previous entries. So they're definitely keeping the vibe. This doesn't seem like something that is going to be a fundamental rehauling of what it means to be Perfect Dark. It seems like they're keeping the spirit, hopefully with just more modern gameplay, a smoother experience with that same vibe that I've come to love. So yeah, Perfect Dark. What do you think?
Yeah, I was super excited because, they were talking about it. This is the initiative. We haven't known what they've been doing for a long time. And we're like, what is this? And then as it's going through, like, the tower, and I'm like, okay, is this another one of these experimental things? But then when you see Dark, I'm like, wait. Oh, I was shocked because this is one of the first things they showed during the Game Awards. And I'm like, what a strong start. You're going to give us the rumored Perfect Dark remake that people have been kind of asking for a long time. And it looks great. I wish that we saw a little more. This was really just an announcement, pre-rendered trailer. But the fact that it's there, the fact that they've been quiet for a long time, the fact that they've been kind of working with their heads down, makes me excited that maybe this game may not be as far out. Hopefully we don't see this as the next 3 Game Awards or something like that. But I'm excited. I'm excited. I've enjoyed Perfect Dark. I played it when I was a lot younger. I really replayed them a lot when they came to... What's the collection? Rare Replay. That's where I think they're both on there.
Yes.
And super excited for that. So I'm excited to see where this goes because, one thing I really do enjoy out of these shooters are like these single player focused shooters. Thinking Wolfenstein and Doom and all that kind of stuff, and getting that with Perfect Dark is a perfect marriage to me.
Yeah, for sure, and it's excited to see that some more stuff coming out of the Microsoft ecosystem, and I have faith that they'll be able to deliver a pretty solid experience on this one. And again, my question was always like, okay, they'll bring Perfect Dark back, but like, is Rare going to be the one to touch this one? Because again, it's not really what they do anymore. But it's cool that they're keeping it in the family, but you know, Rare's doing their own thing, so that's really cool. Dragon Age 4 tease. Now, this is something that for a long time people have been waiting for. A lot of people have been asking for. I am very aware of Dragon Age. I've messed around with the original. I have it on 360 or something like that, but it's not something that I've gone super deep into. Do you have any attachment to Dragon Age at all?
Not to be honest, no, not really. I've always seen the game. I want to play. I played the one that was at the launch for Xbox. I mean, for PlayStation 4. I forgot what that one was called. Inquisition, I think.
Like it sounds familiar. Yeah.
That's I want to say. So I dabbled in it. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but it's great because it is very, hardcore BioWare, but I was always a, course holder guy, and, science fiction is a little bit more my stuff than it is this older Skyrim feelings kind of things. But I know this is something a lot of this Dragon Age and BioWare fans have been waiting for. So I'm glad that they're finally getting something. It's been a while, so to get just a small teaser and not much information and stuff like that, and come with the next announcement too, where it's just kind of, are you doing this just to satisfy your people to leave you guys alone? So
they're elder scrolling us.
Yeah, are they? That's what I'm wondering. But it's interesting. I'll keep my eye out. I like what it is for the community.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of BioWare, obviously the big thing, the thing that makes me the most excited is the next Mass Effect. It has been teased. We didn't get too much information. You see the cosmos, you see some destroyed relays and stuff like that. Towards the end, you get a spot of originally what I thought was an Asari. Everybody's saying it's Liara, so I guess I didn't know who that was, because again, there's lots of Asaris, and they tricked me before because I saw Andromeda and I was like, Liara, and I was like, no, it's some random freckle Asari that jumps on you uncomfortably long. So I've been duped before. But yeah, next Mass Effect, really exciting. It's interesting to see BioWare take this much on and announce basically two major projects at the same time.
Yeah.
And two, again, of their biggest projects, and two of the things that people wanted the longest for them. So I'm curious to see what the timetable looks for this. And it seems like we're kind of heading into a new era of resurgence of Mass Effect, because we're going to get that collection early this year from EA. So it's going to be cool to be able to see the Mass Effect style that we've all actually loved come back, and hopefully they'll be able to kind of crash it, where they'll have the collection will probably be incredibly popular, and they kind of segue all that goodwill, kind of cleansing the palette from Andromeda into a new game that maybe will capture the spirit of the original trilogy a lot more. Because again, a lot of people have made the argument that because of the way 3 ends, and I won't get deeper into that because I understand some people are probably going to play it for the first time through the collection. But the way 3 ends, some people are like, there's no way they could ever do a 4. But I don't think that's an impossibility. Things are open-ended enough that they could at least exist in that universe. It doesn't necessarily need to pick up with Shepard per se, but they could exist still in that universe, absolutely, the way that 3 ends. Especially the good ending of 3. Things do kind of refresh in a way that you could play around with some of those stuff and have those same species and have some of those same planets without necessarily inheriting all of the narrative stuff that Shepard kind of set up. So there's lots of ways that they could play around with it, but it seems like if Liara is still there, they're definitely seeming to play with that original storyline. And it seems like everybody's widely accepted that it is Liara, but
yeah,
I'll believe it when I see it.
I saw people like trying to get down to like the freckle placement. I'm like, guys, all right, come on, come on. We didn't even get a title. We got Mass Effect with a photoshopped "will continue" underneath it. So
yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as there's a guaranteed Liara there, you could almost guarantee that there's probably going to be Shepard's probably coming back. To some extent. Now, what I'm curious about is, now that you're going to have a collection on current-gen consoles, will there be some kind of save carryover? Because if they could straight make a Mass Effect 4, that would be incredible. I think that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
But what are your general thoughts about all this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It was a little weird because we got the announcement not too long ago that they're like officially making it, and we saw some early artwork and stuff like that. So to see this that stuff right at the end with her, I was like, if that is her, I'm like, is this fan base? Is this satisfying fans just to make them believe? Is this going to be a sort of combination, bringing Andromeda connected to the original trilogy? What is it exactly? A lot of little stuff. It looks great, again, it's super early in development, all pre-rendered stuff, so it's exciting. They obviously showed enough to make people enough to throw back to the original trilogy, less on Andromeda, so it's exciting, but we just have to keep our eyes and ears, hopefully they don't try to flood too much information for the next couple years until this game releases. Hopefully they go quiet until they have something really important to show.
Yeah, in many ways we just kind of got a visual confirmation of something they already kind of announced, that, hey, the next Mass Effect is in development. But beyond that, you don't get really much more information, and we got that kind of written write-up that, hey, it's coming, and we have kind of OG voices and people and vets in the BioWare team working on it, so that's a good thing. But beyond that, there's not much information about what the title is going to be, what characters are going to be, what the narrative is going to be. And we don't even have a timeline, so this could be, many years off. That's not a possibility. And again, this is something like Halo, they need to get this right, because again, the franchise itself hangs in the balance, because again, they can only hold so many titles that people consider either subpar or bad before the franchise IP itself takes a real hit, and kind of it being good becomes kind of a remnant of a bygone era, and that's the last thing we all want for Mass Effect.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's continuing on to our loose topic / continuation of the Game Awards. So that was all the big announcements that were really there. So we can get into some of the winners. So I know we speculated last time on what we were thinking, and a lot of this stuff took me by surprise of who won. Obviously, there's one game in particular that won, I believe, 7 awards, which Twitter was fun to read that night. So let's start with the big one, Game of the Year, again, which was Animal Crossing: New Horizons, Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and The Last of Us Part 2. Congratulations to Naughty Dog and everyone. The Last of Us Part 2 did win Game of the Year. This obviously was a big contender. This is probably one, though, we probably knew. I knew it wasn't our personal choice, but we probably knew this was kind of going to win it.
Yeah, again, not what I would have personally went with, but it's not something I'm particularly. I'm not mad at it. Like, I get it.
I completely understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, honestly, my personal opinion, almost all the other games that it's up against are better than it. To me, just my opinion, my personal taste. But hey, I understand that, a lot of people had a really great time with it. It pushed a lot of boundaries. And the big thing that I said last week, it was to temper your expectations, because you have to understand who's voting on this. And that does sway things a lot. That doesn't mean that they're wrong. That just means that, the journalists and the media and the influencers just have a particular view about things that the average person doesn't have necessarily. And a lot of people thought that the fan choice was going to necessarily sync up with what actually happened, because Ghost of Tsushima won pretty definitively there.
One of the players' choice.
Yeah, but it's also important to note as well that not only did a lot of people did like Ghost of Tsushima, but it was also kind of a rebellion vote too. A lot of people have a lot of hatred towards Last of Us Part 2 for a great many reasons. And so a lot of people wanted to kind of have a protest vote, or almost like a third-party political vote for Ghost of Tsushima, as kind of like a FU to Last of Us, to beat Last of Us to another Sony property. And that does exist, because I saw a lot of that narrative happen online, where it was up, there was 2 or 3 waves of voting, and 2 of them it was doing decent, but it shot up in the third when some people on Reddit were basically vote for Ghost of Tsushima to spite Last of Us Part 2. So not as an indictment on Ghost of Tsushima, because that's what I would have went to for Game of the Year, but it is important to note that maybe the players' vote was a little bit inflated, because again, the common narrative was against Last of Us Part 2, where the journalists absolutely adore that game. So that it doesn't surprise me, not what I would have went to, but I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, neither am I. So the next option was next award was Best Game Direction, which was all the games that were for Game of the Year. The only difference was Half-Life Alyx was also introduced, which is that Half-Life VR game that people really seem to enjoy. The winner was The Last of Us Part 2 as well. This one I understood a little bit more, because The Last of Us Part 2 was meant to be the super dark, depressing storyline, and let me tell you, they nailed that much. There was times where I would leave that game and I was just sad for no reason. But what'd you think of this winner?
Again, not surprised.
Yeah.
And if we're just talking about how the game itself was directed, very literally, I don't think this was best directed. Again, I can't speak on Half-Life Alyx. I know a lot of people love that game. I haven't played it. I don't have a VR headset, so I can't speak on that. Hades, not what I would have went through. Again, Hades, there's a lot of great things about, but the direction is not what I love about Hades. It's the gameplay and the character design and stuff like that. So for me personally, it would have came down to Ghost of Tsushima and Final Fantasy. And Ghost of Tsushima, in terms of like a cinematic masterpiece, Ghost of Tsushima's directing to me is pretty excellent. But I do want to note one thing, that the fact, if you look with Game of the Year and game direction, 3 of these games are PlayStation exclusives, so that does speak a lot to the PlayStation ecosystem. I did want to give them a heads up that that's pretty serious stuff, that there's multiple PlayStation exclusives being considered for Game of the Year and Best Game Direction, so shout out to them. But again, not mad at it, but definitely I more definitively disagree with this one.
Yeah, this one, and I understood it. If I get my choice, I would have done Final Fantasy VII Remake, just because the way they were able to direct a 3-hour storyline to a feeling like a full-fledged title was interesting to me.
It's impressive, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so next was Best Narrative, which we had 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, which is, I still have not played that, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and The Last of Us Part 2. This one I really strongly disagree with, but The Last of Us Part 2 won Best Narrative. I don't mind the way the story was told in The Last of Us. I just mind the story. I don't like the story they told. And not for the reason everyone else hates it. I just felt like there was lots of different stuff to go with. For this one, I would have had to give it to Final Fantasy VII as well, just because I haven't played 13 Sentinels. People say it's really fantastic and the story's good.
Okay.
But that's where I stand on that one.
Yeah, I'm really close on this one. 7 Remake. Last of Us Part 2, the funny thing about the narrative is I think actually the narrative is good. It just makes choices I wouldn't have made in the way that they made it. But I don't think it's a bad narrative. And I think they, like, if you take their decisions that they made, it's like, okay, listen, we're going to tell a story that does A, B, and C. They told A, B, and C about as well as you could. It's just I don't necessarily feel like, again, those are the choices I would have made in that particular direction. But when I look at the full thing in its totality, I can't help but respect it, because in many ways, the anger that you feel for the decisions they made is almost part of the story in many ways, where it's like, and that's an impressive thing, where it's like that discomfort that you're feeling for how frivolous they treat some of the lives of those you love is exactly the point of the story. You're feeling the pain. That's what they're talking about. Where a quick decision they make in a snap of a finger right there is exactly the point of the story, where you make these choices, but you don't realize the weight that they hold in the context of another person. And I think that narrative is really, really impressive. Again, it's just I wouldn't have made those choices. So I'm not mad at it winning. I think 7 Remake, the story of that is so amazing. And over the top and crazy. Again, if this was a bigger chunk of 7 and it wasn't just the Midgar section, I have a whole different tune on this. If this is the entirety of 7, it's not even close. But considering the fact that, it's just the Midgar section versus what I think plays with a lot of uncomfortable themes and does it pretty decently, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, exactly. So, continuing on. Best Art Direction. Again, a lot of similar contenders were Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and The Last of Us Part 2. And it was not The Last of Us Part 2. The Best Art Direction winner was Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm completely okay with this decision. I did enjoy a lot of what Ghost of Tsushima had aesthetically going on, and environment, and everything about it. Everything that was artistically about Ghost of Tsushima. Where they didn't focus on making the best looking game. It looks great, but it wasn't like the best looking game, but it's the atmosphere that was in that game, which is why I was completely okay with this choice. I think this is what I may have even voted for when we did our earlier show.
Yeah, I'm really happy that they won. This is absolutely the little category that it should have won. Since we voted last time, I actually did play Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and that would be a very, very, very close second for me. That game is gorgeous. It runs phenomenally. I feel like not enough nearly people are talking about it. And it's, again, one of the best looking games I've ever played. But again, it has a very particular art style. So art direction, I think it's, sure, Ghost of Tsushima I'm very happy about. But Ori is like right there neck and neck for me, where I would have been happy with either of them.
Yeah, I definitely thought Ori was going to take it. I know I personally wanted Ghost's, but I thought Ori was going to take it because I just know what that game is artistically. All right, next was the best score in music, which we had Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and The Last of Us Part 2. And the winner was Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I understood. I kind of thought Doom Eternal was going to edge it out just a little bit. But I do understand this, even though, all those tracks are iconic. They are remixes and stuff like that. So I'm surprised that didn't, push it out. But I'm okay with this. I understand it because the soundtrack to Final Fantasy VII is fantastic. Any reactions to this? Thoughts?
Doom. Come on. It's Doom. Stop playing around. It's Doom. It's not even close. I like the little acoustic thing from Last of Us Part 2. Ori, I loved. The soundtrack's not really what takes it there for me. It's a lot of atmosphere that it does really well at doing. Hades is really fun too. Final Fantasy VII Remake is classic, obviously. But Doom is so far ahead for me in its soundtrack quality that I personally disagree with this one. Not mad at it because again, it's classic. These are all very, very good soundtracks, but Doom is so far ahead for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. I understand that. When I saw that one, I was like, ooh, I think Jarrell's going to want Doom to win that one. But all right.
Come on, Doom. Stop playing with them. Give them something.
Yep. So the next award was Best Performance. We had Ashley Johnson as Ellie from The Last of Us, Laura Bailey as Abby from The Last of Us, Daisuke Tsuji as Jin Sakai from Ghost of Tsushima, Logan Cunningham as Hades from Hades, Najee Jeter as Miles Morales from obviously Spider-Man Miles Morales, and the winner was Laura Bailey as Abby from The Last of Us 2. This one's weird because it was just an awkward one because I was like, I could see anyone take it. Obviously, I think everyone did really fantastic as those characters. I don't know. There was something just kind of plain about it. Laura Bailey is just really good at what she does already, at least in other, I don't know, it's a weird situation because it's like when you take such a, I guess, professional and just tell them you're even better, it's just a little bit weird. She did fine as Abby. I did enjoy her as Abby. I just thought other characters, personified characters, a little bit better. I think when we discussed this, I said Mr. Jeter as Miles Morales was more my understanding because of the whole personification of that character. But congratulations to Laura Bailey. I mean, she is good at what she does. That's not a sly against her. I just I don't know, this one kind of just left me like, okay.
Yeah, Ashley Johnson and Laura Bailey are absolute legends. So I'm never going to be mad at either of them ever winning anything because I think it's more than deserved, and they kill it every time. There's never been a point where I've heard either of them do a role and I'm like, that ain't it. But so I'm not mad at this at all. To me, Abby is a cool character. The performance was solid. It's to me not coming anywhere close to the passion of Logan Cunningham as Hades, especially now that I've played some more Hades, got way deeper and gotten to hear him get progressively angrier. I mean, come on, man. That passion, this is, I feel like, definitely his year. And I feel like we need to give Hades something, and I feel like this was definitely the place that I would have loved for them to win, because, again, it's not very often that you get an indie title that specifically shines, not just in its gameplay and its character design, but also its voice acting. And voice acting is many times where indie games kind of fall short, because voice talent is an expensive thing, and it's hard to get big names on there. So the fact that they had a lot of people who a lot of people don't really know, and they all did such an absolutely incredible job. And specific Logan, I thought that would have been an awesome kind of thing, of a bone to throw him. But yeah, so that's where I would have went. But I'm not mad at Laura Bailey winning anything. She's incredibly talented.
Yeah, no, I like her, and I kind of had a feeling that it was going to be either Ashley Johnson or her. So,
yeah,
congratulations. Best indie game, we had Kyrian, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, Hades, Spelunky 2, and Spiritfarer, and the winner was Hades, and I completely agree with this. I don't understand. I immediately knew this was gonna have to go to Hades. They completely deserve it. I love that game.
Yeah, spot on. I'm super happy with it.
Yeah. Best action game, we had Doom Eternal, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, Neo 2, and Streets of Rage 4. And best action game went to Hades as well. So again, we've praised Hades so much for so long. So I completely any of these winners, except actually Half-Life Alyx probably wouldn't have made sense to me. But yeah, congratulations to Hades, absolutely.
Yeah, all those games are excellent from what I understand, and I've played all of them again except for Half-Life Alyx, and I've liked all these games. Neo 2 is excellent, and so is Streets of Rage 4. So I'm not mad at any of these, but I'm just glad to see Hades. Hades, I mean, again, this indie game beating some of these massive AAA games. That it's really awesome to see. So very happy for them.
All right, best action adventure game. We had Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ori and Will of the Wisp, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and The Last of Us Part 2. And this one really doesn't make sense to me, but The Last of Us Part 2 was selected as the winner. Which, yeah.
Oh, no. Not in this segment. Nope, not in this category.
Yeah, no, I didn't understand this one either. Ghost, Miles, even Jedi Fallen Order would have made more sense to me. And not to say that The Last of Us is bad. And again, we've gone over this 100 times. I just think action adventure is not what I think of when I think of The Last of Us. I understand that term action adventure is so broad. So it's interesting, but it is what it is. Yeah, I don't agree with this one, but what can we do?
Yeah, Fallen Order. The unfortunate thing is, I feel like it came out so late, and it put it in that weird limbo zone where it qualifies for this year, but nobody sees this as a 2020 game. And so, again, for last year, I'm all with it, but it's up against a lot of stiff competition, and it's kind of that old game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So again, I love Fallen Order, and it's again one of my favorite games of last generation for sure. And especially coming the fact that Star Wars was such in a lull in terms of games for a long time, and this in many ways saved a lot of it. But yeah, unfortunately, it is a victim of its own timing where it came out. Valhalla, you guys know I love me some Valhalla, so I would be happy if that won. For me, again, it has to be down to Ghost of Tsushima or Miles Morales. In terms of just action, if we're just talking action, the action choreography of Miles Morales is excellent. The way they newly choreographed, the way everything seamlessly chains together, it's so beautiful. It runs perfectly.
Absolutely.
Ghost of Tsushima, clean, the different stances and everything. Once you really learn how to play that game, it's just a perfect samurai experience. Last of Us, as an action game, better than, please. And it almost feels like, and again, I don't mean to be Mr. Conspiracy Man, but it feels like I know there was a massive divide between what the fans were saying and what the journalists were saying, and that there was a lot of pushback against the journalists had a lot of pushbacks against people, and this feels like a big way for the industry to basically say an F you to a lot of the fans who didn't like this game.
This one was That's definitely what it feels the like. One. This one was definitely that one. I just, to me, Last of Us is a third-person shooter, practically. So it's just weird.
Yeah, I feel like this was the industry's way of saying, like, hey, a lot of the fans were being very mean to the team, very mean to the actors, a lot of sexism, maybe a little bit of transphobia, a lot of stuff going on that the journalists were not feeling at all. And so this was their way of kind of taking their power back, which in some ways I have no problem with, because I think it's justified in certain categories, but at times it feels like you guys are doing too much. You're doing too much here with these wins. And Last of Us Part 2 in no universe is even close to the best action adventure game compared to some of these. Valhalla, like, for real, like the resurgence of Assassin's Creed, blending those things perfectly. This expansive Norse world, Ghost of Tsushima, this samurai masterpiece, Miles Morales, a black Spider-Man game, and you talking about like the Seattle zombie game is the one that stop it. But it's a great game, but stop it.
Not with that. Best role-playing game. Best role-playing game: Final Fantasy VII Remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royal, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza Like a Dragon. I didn't care which one won as long as it wasn't Genshin Impact, and thankfully, Genshin Impact did not win. Final Fantasy VII Remake
I expected
did win.
It to, though. I was surprised.
Role-playing. I was expecting that, So yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake, definitely. They're there. I'm not mad at it. Obviously, my choice would have been that, Persona 5 or Yakuza, so I'm glad that Final Fantasy VII Remake did take it. I have no problem with that. I could have seen any three of them taking it, and I would have been okay with it.
Yeah, now that I've played Yakuza, I definitely have it way higher up. Obviously, the original, I didn't know really where to place it. But no, that game's super, super up there. But yeah, I'm going with 7 Remake too, because again, not only does it have all the excellent RPG mechanics, but it has that spectacle factor too, and in a way that I think edges out Yakuza a little bit, where again, excellent game, great RPG mechanics, especially kind of for a first timer in many ways. This franchise wasn't really that RPG-ish before. Yeah, you would upgrade your gear a little bit, and you would have different stats that you work on. Yeah. But they really upped the RPG mechanics in a different way in this game, and the fact that it was able to make it there. And again, Persona 5, I think, is going to go down as an RPG classic. Personally, I think in the future, in terms of just talking like 20 years from now, people are probably going to talk about Persona 5 the most as an RPG classic, but I'm not mad at 7 Remake taking it at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Congratulations to them. Best fighting game, which I know I personally took issue with this whole. I took an issue with this whole list, and I even discussed it on our other show. The choices were Grand Blue Fantasy versus Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, Street Fighter 5 Champion Edition, One Punch Man: A Hero Nobody Knows, and Under Night in Birth EX Late CLR. And the winner was Mortal Kombat.
Was so nuts.
The winner was Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate. Again, 3 of these games are re-releases and / just kind of updates to the games that have already been out. But in a world where we had to do that, again, I would like to see Tekken 7 on this list. Because the only reason I think, well, I don't know how they choose these titles. Tekken 7 is still releasing updates. They're just not getting like under names. They're not adding Tekken 7 Sword Edition and all that kind of stuff. But Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate's nothing I'm nothing mad at. The community's really been enjoying it. They've been, NetherRealm's been really great with supporting it. We got Rambo, Rain, and Melina, and I think we're getting 3 more characters before they finish off the game. So congratulations to them and everyone over there. I'm excited to see what they do next. I'm hoping they get away from Injustice and get away from Mortal Kombat for a little bit to see what they're doing. I just don't see any one of these other games winning it. I don't know what One Punch Man's doing on this list at all. But Mortal Kombat 11 obviously makes the most sense. If it was not going to be Mortal Kombat, it would have been Street Fighter. Thinking about it, anything to say? Just
not throwing my hands up on this one. I'm not nearly qualified enough to speak on any of these. Mortal Kombat winning doesn't surprise me because it's obviously the most well-known of the titles. But hey, if you happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, sounds good. And the final one that we have for today is the best multiplayer game. We had Among Us, Animal Crossing: New Horizons, Call of Duty Warzone, and Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Oh, and Valorant. I don't know what Call of Duty and Valorant are doing on here. But congratulations to Among Us. Inner Sloth, I think, is the company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Congratulations to them. Among Us won the best multiplayer game. This did not surprise me at all, just because the way Among Us really took the community and the world by storm, and you have AOC playing it. What a nuts time that you have everyone playing Among Us. But congratulations to them, multiplayer game of the year.
Yeah, I'm not mad at this at all. I think it's super, super deserving. And the funny thing is, Animal Crossing, I love Animal Crossing, but the multiplayer is almost the worst part of it. It's so poorly designed.
Yeah, I was super confused about that.
Yeah, this is not the category for them, unfortunately. And Warzone, Warzone's Warzone. Like it's great from what I understand, but it kind of is what it is. And Fall Guy deserving to be there. Valorant, I mean, okay, if you got it. Listen, I'm going to default to... I don't play multiplayer games as much, too. I don't know what Valorant's doing there, but God bless them. But yeah, very excited for Among Us. And you know what the hilarious thing is? They're lucky that The Last of Us multiplayer mode didn't come out yet. Because if it did, they would have easily gave it to that for no reason other than to just be petty. So I'm glad that these games were able to get their shine. And Among Us, the fact that a game like Among Us, games like Fall Guys, and Hades, that would have otherwise maybe in previous years would have gotten overlooked because of these massive Activision EA games. The fact that they're kind of at the forefront now is an awesome thing, and it's an exciting thing to see for the industry as you see this industry kind of get these massive budgets, and things are taking longer and longer, and the spectacle's growing, and they're powerhouse games. That games like Among Us, that essentially in many ways could probably run on a browser, could win best multiplayer game over a Call of Duty game is just awesome to see. And I know to some people that's going to be like heresy, But to me, I think that's an excellent thing because that shows that the industry is not predictable and doesn't necessarily fall into norms. Because again, go back to 2010. I mean, Call of Duty is demolishing everyone. And the fact that, not that they're losing, but the fact that a game like Among Us could even get Shine next to them is an awesome thing to see. So the future is bright, I think, in gaming.
Yeah, super exciting. Super exciting where this is showing games going.
So yeah, I would say this year, Game Awards, not a bad year at all. A lot of great showings. Yep. Decent year. I think they super overcompensated with the Last of Us thing. But again, I'm not even on the Last of Us hate bandwagon. I'm not that guy. Neither are you. We both have our problems with that game, but neither of us were like haters of the game.
No.
But I think we could both agree that they did a little bit too much with that this year.
I do. I see some of the argument. But guys, at least it's out now. I'm excited to really see what this next year holds, what next Game Awards looks like. I would not be sad if they shortened it. I don't want to sit there for 3.5 hours waiting on, I don't know, some announcement and stuff like that. But we'll see. We'll see what the rest of the year hold. Well, what the new year holds and what games are going to be awarded. And
a category that this company is lucky doesn't exist. The least player-friendly company in the at least right now goes to Nintendo. Do you see what the hell they've been up to?
Yeah, I just was very little bit yesterday because it does have to do with the Smash community. Yeah.
I mean, there's the Smash thing. There's the Etika thing. Rest in peace.
There's
oh my
the
god,
Etika
what
Joy-Con situation.
Yeah, the Smash thing. There was the Splatoon situation.
Yep.
Like, man, Nintendo, slow down. Y'all lucky that category doesn't exist because they'd vote the hell out of you. But yeah, just wanted to cap the show off with that. It's like, Nintendo, get your act together.
They really
I feel like they got the old exec problem, where they just have people at the top who do not understand the modern game industry whatsoever. And they have a lot of the problems that like the music industry has too, where like somebody will be streaming a game and there's a little bit of copyrighted music and they're just like, no, shut it down. Somebody's getting a free stream of our song. It's like, if the OST doesn't even exist on Spotify, what are you talking about? And Nintendo's the same way. It's like, wait a minute, you cannot pirate our game. We understand that game doesn't exist anywhere else, and we're going to do nothing to support it, but you can't pirate that. And it's like, I mean, I know your company's from the 1800s, but you don't have to like operate like you are. Like, geez, Nintendo.
Yeah, times have definitely changed.
But hey, I mean, as backwards as Nintendo is, at least they're not the Atari VCS. At least they launch things. But till next time, this is Jabrell from the NeoVintage Podcast, and I'm with
Steve. Hope everyone enjoyed.
And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.